destruction of buildings along here was almost total. On the roads, the Japanese had contrived crude but effective landmines using aerial bombs turned upside down with a special fuse. They could be lethal when they went off, but fortunately they were easy to detect. A wrecked tank on the approach to the devastated village of Berthitong on the Calapantan River was evidence of the severity of the fighting here. The inhabitants of this important rice-growing area had fled. We had to devise a primitive ferry here to take the heavy vehicles across the river. A truck was used as motive power on this unusual vessel. Provided that everything was positioned carefully, it was quite stable and could carry 3 loaded lorries and countless foot soldiers on each voyage. A field hospital in the jungle flew the flag, but the sites where the guns were located had to be very carefully camouflaged both from the air and on the ground. These positions were obviously priority targets for the Japanese because of our successes against them. Our guns were 3.7-inch anti-aircraft weapons, capable of firing a 28-pound shell over a horizontal distance of 12 miles with great accuracy, but vertically up to 30,000 feet against enemy planes. We didn't need to actually hit the target, as shells could be set to explode and produce great damage without a direct strike. Daytime slow firing was often for registration purposes. The guns could be fired on approximate bearings, while observers on the hills in sight of the burst could provide correctual information to be ready for the nighttime bombardment. They were modern, up-to-date weapons, very reliable and well engineered, but very damaging indeed to the hearing of the crews who operated them. The guns could not be dug in, as would be the normal practice, because the dried-out paddy fields became as hard as concrete, so large numbers of sandbags had to be used, surrounded by camouflage nets, booby traps and barbed wire. The 10-men gun teams kept a tally of their operations, a black gun corresponding to each 1,000 rounds fired and a setting sun signifying an aircraft shot down. Each gun was called after a girl, either the wife or sweetheart of the sergeant in charge, but if there was a change of affection at home, its name had to be changed too. Moving the guns, which we did often, was heavy and hot manual work. There were no shortcuts and no relief from the blazing sun beating down on metal surfaces. Even the ancillary equipment, such as the target predictor used to estimate the aircraft's future position in the sky, was bulky, weighty and very awkward to move. On into the evening, preparation of the ammunition and fine adjustments to the targeting continued. There was little rest or leisure time at these sites, and soon after the sun set in the short tropical twilight, the guns started their barrage of unseen targets, usually with great success, according to intelligence reports. We had thought that the cruel heat and humidity of the Burmese summer was bad, but nothing prepared us in our first year for the coming of the monsoon. The rain, which at first seemed like a pleasant change, came heavier and heavier until it was a deluge, continuous, without ceasing from June until September. It was impossible to get away from it. Clothes, tents, dugouts, even the food were perpetually saturated. Paddy fields, which once provided a firm foundation, became liquid mud, and the dirt rose totally impossible. It was sticky and oozy slime, with such great suction that it could even pull off laced boots. Equipment could be moved only on flat sledges, and the enormous manpower needed to shift them produced scenes worthy of any biblical epic. When a heavy load was added to the sledges, Movement was measured in inches with each heave. Many of us were greatly weakened by the effects of malaria, and with the extra effort simply dropped into the mud through sheer exhaustion and frustration, often attacked by blood-sucking leeches. But even in Burma it couldn't rain forever. At last the sun broke through again, and by December it was quite pleasant. We lined up expectantly for our special Christmas dinner, hoping for something different from our usual fare of hardtack and even perhaps an increase in our normal beer ration of 3 bottles per man per month. One year we even arranged to have a white Christmas, created by the feathers of some rather skinny local ducks, which found themselves an important part of the celebrations. When away from the front, we decided to form a pipe band, as a number of men in the regiment had been in various bands back in Belfast. It started in a small way with just 3 sets of pipes, which had been bought in India by the soldiers when they were on leave, using funds donated by generous friends back in Northern Ireland. With the kite hawks circling above, St. Patrick would have been proud of them as they played in his honour in the dried-out Burmese paddy fields on the 17th of March. By the next year, the band could boast 12 pipers. With extra drummers trained, they could now produce quite an impressive sound on parade, although the pipes were hard to keep in tune in the harsh climate. Each time we went back in action, the band instruments had to be packed away for safekeeping. Our parade ground had to double as a landing strip where our few brave Hurricanes refueled. The banks separating the paddy fields near the village had to be removed to create a level runway. By 1944, the band had reached a very high standard of performance. The pipers carried the banners of pure cashmere silk bearing the crest of the Royal Artillery, which had been presented to them by the officers of the regiment. Their cross belts carried the badge of the Red Hand of Ulster, which we all wore with great pride. Eventually, we had 3 bands altogether, including a flute band, and decided to celebrate the 12th in style. Our soldiers were a very mixed group. As well as genuine Orangemen, they included Roman Catholics and Jews. But everyone looked forward to this day and joined in with great enthusiasm, making banners from ammunition covers and erecting arches which any lodge at home would have been proud of. It was a light-hearted relief for a time from the problems of war and helped to bring out some of our hidden talents, such as painting a very fine King Billy, complete with white horse, on one of the banners. We tried to keep fit, as our lives could depend on our strength and agility. An instructor arrived to coach us in techniques of self-defense. We were surprised to discover that he was an Australian who had taught judo to the Japanese before the war and was now keen to teach us about disarming opponents and silent killings in case we were surprised in the jungle by his former pupils. I had the misfortune to be the officer chosen to learn this art. Here I am taking a weapon off a would-be attacker, and then I went round the various batteries to hold classes for the troops. They were certainly very effective techniques, but thank goodness I was never put in a position where I had to apply any of them. On one of our sports days we had arranged to have a wrestling match. It didn't appear to the onlookers to be very exciting, so we